It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor? Chicka chicka boom boom. It's the Leo Be the Lion show. Boom boom. Gonna tell you what you need to know. Boom boom. Now here comes your boy Leo. Hey everyone, and happy new year from your boy Leo Be the Lion, coming to you live here today on January 2nd from Respectable Street on Clematis in beautiful West Palm Beach, Florida. It's a beautiful 79 and sunny outside, partly cloudy, and it's looking great for the start of 2023 down here in Florida. No worries just yet. 2023, I'm sure you still have some tricks up your sleeve, so we won't count our chickens before they hatch. As for me, I'm Leo B. the Lion. You can follow me on Twitter and IG at Leo B. the Lion Show, or subscribe, if you please, to my channel on YouTube at Leo B. the Lion. And I put out videos periodically, especially at least once a week, regarding my show from 5 to 6 live here at Subculture Radio Studios. And you can listen live to the broadcast at subcultureradio.com. That's www.subcultureradio.com, and there's a live listen link that you can log into. And then I'll be posting the video later on in the week. And I've been practicing my graphics game, so I'm going to try and get this iMovie going and see what we can do and make it a little bit more better of a production for 2023. And then what I'm going to get into for my show today is the college football playoff. We had the semifinals this weekend on New Year's Eve, and it was TCU versus Michigan and Georgia versus Ohio State. And then the results, and I'll give you a little Natty preview, a national championship preview, the CFP National Championship, which will take place on January 9th at 7:30 on ESPN. And ESPN networks. It'll probably be on four or five different telecasts. ESPN takes over the national championship at this point. We'll get into the NFL Week 17 news and notes, how the playoff picture is shaping up with one more week to go. And then also we'll get into the Miami Dolphins and how their season is crumbling and falling apart. We'll get into my hashtag 5-pack of picks for the recap of how I did for this past week, as well as getting into a new fresh set of 5-pack of picks for you for this week coming at you. We'll also talk about my newest segment, Words of Encouragement. I have something new for 2023, and I'll be talking to you about my New Year's and a little generational difference that we noticed playing a board game over New Year's Eve with my uncle and my son. So let's get into the CFP semifinal review and the national championship preview, and we will start with TCU versus Michigan. TCU came in as 8-point underdogs, and they were able to put up 51 points on a defense that was top 10 against the run and top 10 against the pass, and was holding opponents to about 13 points a game, 13.8 points a game. TCU just proved to me that they are competitive and the real deal when it comes to the college football playoff. They are a Big 12 team, so people expected their defense to be overrated and their defense not be able to do much. Well, they did allow 45 points, but their defense did shut down Michigan early and often. Maybe not the whole game, but they did it often enough to win the game 51-45. In addition to their defense, Sonny Dykes and Max Duggan drew up a terrific game plan when it came to stopping J.J. McCarthy and stopping that offense when they needed to most. They got a clutch pick six at the beginning of the game, and then towards the end of the game, they got a pick six to help them turn the tides. At one point, they were up 41-29, and they were able to. I thought the game was over. Michigan was able to within a matter of about 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes real time, Michigan was able to come back and fight their way back and get within a touchdown or get within a point, and actually they were able to tie the game up. Duggan and Dykes. And when it comes to those two things, that is Max Duggan, the quarterback, and Sonny Dykes, the coach for TCU. They just vindicate my theory in college football that if you have a dynamic quarterback and a coach that is savvy enough to know the X's and O's, as well as charismatic enough to rile the players up, get the players ready to play, and deal with the media scrutiny, that combination, that coach-quarterback combination, is dangerous and national championship worthy when you can get the right combination involved. The Max Duggan, Sonny Dykes combination led TCU to convert third downs, be able to do just enough on offense to be able to beat Michigan and take care of business. Now, up next is Georgia, and Georgia, save for last game against Ohio State, and we'll get into that game, TCU should have trouble against Georgia's defense. Georgia's defense, if there's a team that's better than Michigan on defense, it's Georgia on defense. And so we'll see, although Georgia did allow 41 points to Ohio State, a team that Michigan trounced. And so we'll see if TCU can can have success offensively against Georgia's defense. As far as TCU's defense, I think they'll be able to put a little bit of pressure on Stetson Bennett. Stetson Bennett is 25 years old. He's in his 6th year. He's in his grad year. He's been around the block. He's redshirted. He's everything that you can be. He's in his last year of eligibility, and he knows the team. He's like having another coach on the field. And so I really feel that Stetson Bennett is going to be the edge for Georgia. But we'll see how TCU's defense is able to attack, and if they're able to find any holes in the Georgia defense. We shall see. That'll be the matchup to watch. It'll be TCU's skill position players versus Georgia's secondary and Georgia's linebackers. Let's see what they can do. Now, let's move on to the second semifinal. It was Georgia versus Ohio State in the Peach Bowl. It was in Mercedes-Benz Dome in Atlanta, Georgia, and Georgia was the heavy favorite at a little bit over 7 points, at 7.5 points, and 7 points at some books where you could get it. Well, Georgia ended up barely beating Ohio State, not covering at all, and barely beating 42-41. And the only reason that Georgia was able to claim the victory, almost 2 seconds or a second before the stroke of midnight on 2023, the first second of 2023, Ohio State missed a field goal wide left to lose the Peach Bowl and lose the chance to go to the national championship in college football. Georgia was ecstatic at New Year's, and Ohio State was dejected as they did all they could to get into the game and put their players in position, put their team in position towards the end of the game to kick a game-winning field goal. It was a 50-yarder, and the play they called before that was kind of like a deep shot, but they should have maybe tried to get 5 more yards, 6 more yards, and then kick a field goal. But hindsight is 20/20. We'll never know. Ohio State ends up losing to Georgia on a last-second field goal miss. Georgia is ecstatic, and it wasn't your typical Georgia game. At one point, Georgia was down 21-7, and Georgia was looking like they were going to get blown out. I was nervous. I was disappointed in Georgia. I said, this is not your typical Georgia game. To allow a team to score 41 points and have the chance to beat you at the end when you're supposed to ride or die and you're supposed to lean on and heavily put all your weight, lean on your defense couldn't keep them even out of field goal range. Imagine there was probably a heart attack or two when Georgia won. and vice versa when Ohio State lost that game. That was a one of the classic semifinals that we may ever see in the college football playoffs, as well as the TCU Michigan game was also a classic game. There were so many lead changes. There was so many twists and turns in the game. You thought TCU had it in the bag. You thought Michigan was coming back, and also you thought Georgia was gonna be able to come back and take care of business. But Georgia took care of business, 42-41. They didn't mind about the points. They didn't mind how many points they were favored as long as they got the win to go to the national championship. So like I said, up next, the last game in college football is TCU versus Georgia, number 1 Georgia versus number 3 TCU in the college football playoff on January 9th. Coverage begins on ESPN networks at 7 p.m. The game starts around shortly after 7:30. They'll have like little pregame festivities and probably the national anthem, and they will probably have another like pregame band or someone play for the show. TCU, like I said, has Max Duggan, Sonny Dykes, and they have Quentin Johnston, their star wide receiver who's back from injury. And with him, he's a dynamic player on the outside, and he should be able to take care of business against Georgia's corners. UGA has Stetson Bennett and the defense. Let's see if those two combinations, that quarterback is Stetson Bennett. Kirby Smart is a great coach. But the reason why I don't compare Max Duggan and Sonny Dykes as I don't compare Kirby Smart and Stetson Bennett is because I don't believe Stetson Bennett is as good of a quarterback as Max Duggan. I say that Kirby Smart, is probably a better coach than Sonny Dykes. Probably a smarter coach, probably more savvy, gets the deal done. He called a timeout on a fake punt, and then they ended up taking care of business after that. But UGA, I still think, has the advantage because Stetson Bennett is able to run the ball. He's able to do just enough passing game, just enough on the pass, and play defense to really take care of business. I think TCU loses a close one. I'd say 34-30. Georgia repeats. First repeat since USC has done it. And in 2002, 2003. Now, or 2003, 2004, one of those two. And then when we look at it, it's going to be a good game. I don't really think that Georgia has the too big of advantage because we saw that Ohio State took it to Georgia, and when a team has a good quarterback, they can move the ball against Georgia and play a decent defense and have a strong defense and get Georgia off their game. So let's see how they end up playing and see who takes care of business on January 9th, Monday, January 9th, 7:30 p.m. Next week on the Leo Be the Lion show, I will be having that game. I'll be giving you that little preview show of that game. Also, I'll spend a few minutes on it, just if there's any updates on injuries, any updates on players being out, anything crazy going on before the national championship. Ladies and gentlemen, what used to be a game between a traditional 1 and 2, or even the games would just be the bowl games. Just a little history lesson. In college football, it used to be where the number 1 team in the country might play in the Rose Bowl, per se. If USC was the number 1 team in the country, they would play in the Rose Bowl against the Big Ten champion, no matter who the Big Ten champion was, and it could be like the number 7th ranked team. And then the number 2 team would play, let's say if it was Notre Dame, let's just say. The number 2 team would play in the Orange Bowl against the ACC champion, no matter who the ACC champion was ranked. And then it would end up being where whoever won those games, so if USC won that game by more than Notre Dame won the game, they would be declared by the Associated Press the national champions for that year. Or sometimes they would even share the national championship. So we've come a long way from the press deciding the game to having a 4-team playoff and soon to be a 12-team playoff for the college football national championship. Now, let's just do a quick story time before we get into NFL football And that is my New Year's Eve, New Year's party that I went to. It wasn't with a party. It was just with family. It was with my Tio Pablo and my dad and my family and my son. And we were playing. It was about 8 of us. And we decided to play Jenga. That was fun. So we did the Jenga. I lost one time. I think I pulled it and it broke. And then the next thing we played, yeah, my son pulled one and it broke on the Jenga board. And we said Jenga, so it was cool. And then we played Pictionary. And so we were drawing the Pictionary, and then it was my Uncle Pablo versus my son. And they were said to draw text. And so my Uncle Pablo said, all right, this is easy. And then my son was like, this is easy. We're going to draw text. Not a text, but just the word text. So draw that as a picture. So my Uncle Pablo is about late 50s, early 60s. And he drew a book with scribbled text on it. Well, my son, who is under 10, drew a phone with text bubbles and text on it. And when we both saw it, because we couldn't guess what it was, but when the group all saw it, we laughed because it was such a generational difference that one generation, the older generation, the baby boomers, if you will, saw the word text and they thought of a book with words in it. And then the younger generation, I don't know what the name is going to be, the internet age or whatever, saw it and thought of a phone text, like text message. So I just thought I would add that in. That's pretty cool that to see that play out firsthand on New Year's Eve. I hope everybody had a great New Year's Eve. And I hope everybody is looking forward to 2023. And don't worry, it's a long year. And, don't worry about holding yourself to resolutions, to do the best you can, and you'll be straight. And it'll be a good 2023. Anything can happen. Just keep that in mind and go into it with an open mind. So there you go. Now, let's get into switch gears from New Year's Eve time and story time to the Miami Dolphins fall from grace. The Miami Dolphins fall 23-21 against the New England Patriots. It was a terrible game for the Dolphins, for us Dolphins fans. We thought we could win this game the whole time, thinking the Dolphins opened the game as 1-point favorites with Teddy Bridgewater at quarterback. And then throughout the week, the line moved to 2.5-point underdogs for the Dolphins. And I said, no, I'm going to still take it -1. I'm going to lay the 1 point. I'll be straight. The Dolphins will be good. But I must be insane. The definition of insanity is not doing the same thing over again and expecting a different result. It's being a Miami Dolphins fan, which is just, it's like I must be masochistic because I must love pain. I must not understand what it is. Like, I could just pick another team, but no, I can't quit you. I cannot quit the Dolphins. I cannot. So the Dolphins fall 23-21 against the New England Patriots, and the Dolphins lost all their leverage for the playoffs. The Dolphins lost all their control for the playoff destiny. Now the Patriots have their playoff destiny in their own hands and control the Dolphins' destiny. The Patriots next week for their final game play the Buffalo Bills, and the Buffalo Bills might have nothing to play for and they might have something to play for. It depends how they do this Monday night. If they win on Monday night, they'll still have the 1 seed to play for next week, and they'll want to win to possibly get the first round bye in the playoffs. If the Bills lose, they will not be able to get the first round bye, and so they might rest their players and possibly give the Pats an easier chance to win. The Dolphins will have to beat the Jets regardless to have a chance to get into the playoffs. If the Dolphins beat the Jets and the Patriots lose to the Bills, the Dolphins will be in the playoffs as the 7th seed and have to play in the wild card against the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, for this game, 23-21 is deceptive because it wasn't as close as that. It was 23-14 for the longest until the Dolphins scored a garbage time touchdown and then failed to convert on the onside kick to lose the game. So, the Dolphins have let us down once again, Dolphin fans, from 8-3 to lose 5 straight, now to 8-8. Teddy and Skyler didn't get it done. Teddy Bridgewater had to come out of the game early in the third quarter because he hurt his finger, and Skyler Thompson took over and was able to try to be serviceable, but he threw a pick or two, and Teddy and Skyler combined for 24 for 40 passing, 247 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Was not going to get it done against the New England Bill Belichick-led coach team. As for our rushing attack, wasn't much better. 27 attempts for 86 yards and a touchdown, which is about 3.6 yards per carry. It's not going to get it done, especially when you need to score touchdowns and get the ball into the skill positions players' hands. It's not good enough in the secondary as well. Every time the Dolphins had, late in the game when the Dolphins had the Patriots in third down and long, third down and manageable for the defense, the Patriots were able to find men open behind the Dolphins secondary and convert for first downs and cost the Dolphins the game. Now, the Dolphins, what time is it, buddy? The Dolphins were without X, Teron Armstead, and Nick Chubb. 5:21. Thank you. I have my little helper next to me, helping me, giving me the time, keeping my time right. So, Xavier Howard, Teron Armstead, and Nick Chubb were all out. They probably weren't good enough to go. I don't question their toughness at all. I don't question their heart at all, especially Teron Armstead. He had a toe injury, a quad injury, a hip injury. He has a shoulder injury, and I think like a rib injury. So I don't fault him for being out. I don't fault X for being out, because if you're not at tip-top shape as a corner in the NFL, you should sit out, because you need to be at 100% guarding any receiver in the NFL. You need to be at 100% so that you can guard them. Nick Chubb, guarantee we haven't been using him as best as we could. We could definitely beat Nick Chubb and use Nick Chubb in a better way and get him to rush the passer a little bit better, especially getting him from the Broncos, where he was so productive with the Broncos. In my opinion, looking forward for the Dolphins need to primarily look at replacing the defense coordinator, Josh Boyer, in the offseason. Our defensive line is great. Our outside linebackers are great. We just need to put those players in position to succeed more. We need to put those players in position to get the most out of those players, for those players to excel. When you have 4 or 5 pass rushers on the outside, yeah, we've had a slew of injuries. Yeah, at least 9 players have been out, of our starters have been out at any given time. But that's no excuse in the NFL. You have to have next man up, and you have to know how to use your personnel in the league to get the most out of them. Now, like I said, we need the Pats to lose, Dolphins to beat the Jets, which is no easy task. When the Dolphins are playing the Jets, Week 18, Week 17, last week of the season, whatever you want to call it, usually it's for to go to the playoffs for one of those teams, and there's nothing a team loves more to end the season than to play spoiler for that other team. So I know the Jets are going to try to take care of business on the road in Miami. It's going to be a tough-fought game. I expect a couple of fights in the stands in Miami. It's going to be a tough-ass game, regardless of any which way you shake it. The Dolphins are in for a dogfight when it comes to Spirit Airlines versus the Miami Dolphins. I mean, the Jets versus the Miami Dolphins. Yeah, because I hate the Jets. That's right. And then we shall see. Once the Dolphins, if they do make it to the playoffs and Tua comes back, hopefully he'll be back. And then so if the Dolphins come back and are able to make it to the playoffs, they will be playing the Kansas City Chiefs, like I said, in all likelihood. And the worry for me there is that we won't be able to stop Patrick Mahomes. Our secondary is banged up. Without Keon Crossan, played banged up. But we, like I said, X is touch and go. We don't have Byron Jones. He's been gone. We need to get rid of him in the offseason, but it'll probably be about a $15 to $20 million cap hit to get rid of Byron Jones. I don't know if he'll have any takers also because he's an expensive player, aging player, and he has an Achilles injury. If we're able to make some noise in the playoffs and somehow face the Bills, I like our chances. I think we have revenge on our mind if we can somehow get to the playoffs and the Dolphins can face the Bills one more time and possibly in the rubber match to go to the Super Bowl. That would be so awesome to see that. But I doubt it. As a Dolphins fan, I have to be realistic. I have to understand that the way that things are looking, the Dolphins might lose on Sunday against the Jets. When the Jets don't have anything to play for, are eliminated from playoff contention, and the Dolphins have everything to play for, have to win. This is typical Dolphins. They usually know how to lose when they're supposed to win in these situations. So now, let's get into the NFL Week 17 news and notes. The playoffs are almost set. There's one spot left in the AFC and 2 spots left in the NFC. In the AFC, you have, well, actually, there's a division, 2 spots in the AFC and 2 spots in the NFC because you have the Bills, the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Bills, the Chiefs, the Bengals, and the Jags right now as the 4 division. Then you have the Ravens, the Chargers, and then the 7th seed is up for grab. The 4th AFC South division is going to be up for grabs next week when the Jags and the Titans play. And the 7th seed is up for grabs week 18 next week, the last week when the Dolphins play the Jets and the Patriots play the Bills. If both teams, if the Dolphins and the Patriots lose and the Steelers win next week, the Steelers will sneak into the playoffs. That would be surprising for Mike Tomlin to sneak into the playoffs like that. And in the NFC, you have the Eagles, Vikings, 49ers, and the Buccaneers as the division winners. And then you have in the wild card hunt, you have the Dallas Cowboys, the Green Bay Packers or the Lions, and the Giants. Now, Green Bay is playing for their playoff live next week against the Lions. If they win, I believe whoever wins that matchup, the Viking or the Packers versus the Lions will go to the playoffs as the 7th seed. The Giants have clinched the playoff spot. The Cowboys, as the other wild card, have clinched the playoff spot, but there's still a chance for the Cowboys, if the Eagles lose next week, to sneak in as the NFC East division winner if the Cowboys win and things fall the chips where they may. So, after looking at what the playoffs is almost done, let's take a look at the Week 17 news and notes. I normally pick 5 games that I like to touch on that are important for the landscape of the NFL, as well as I like to talk about the Jags, the Dolphins, and the Bucks, since they're Florida teams, and what they did. I already talked about the Dolphins and how they embarrassed themselves and lost against the Patriots in Foxborough and Gillette Stadium. Now let's talk about the Jags versus the Texans. Earlier in the year, the Texans only had 1 win, and the 1 win was against the Jags 13-6. And just to show you how far the Jags have come, the Jags beat the Texans 31-3 in Houston, and now the Jags are sitting pretty for the 4th seed in the AFC playoff bracket and for the AFC South title. If they can beat the Titans next week, they can lock up the AFC South title against the Titans. The Jags have a good young squad with Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne, and plenty of good young players that they have on defense. Doug Peterson is a Super Bowl caliber coach. He did it with the Philadelphia Eagles and was able to bring the Philadelphia Eagles to beat the New England Patriots with the Philly special and all that. He's coaching up Trevor Lawrence. So it's kind of peculiar, but also kind of interesting to see how the Jags are so far coming up in the world, and they're really getting stronger at the right time. December and January is when you want your team playing the best football, and that is exactly what the Jacksonville Jaguars are doing right now. They're playing their best football at a time when you expect it and need it most. They're playing against the Titans next week, and the tricky part right here for the Titans is that they're reeling. The Titans, I believe, have lost 5 straight as well, and they lost, and they can't win a game. They've played teams, they've had winnable games, but they're so hamstrung that Ryan Tannehill is out for the season, and they haven't been able to really put any type of backup quarterback together. I really thought Malik Willis was going to do better in his 3 games as backup, but he's 0-3 as a backup and hasn't been able to put much of offensive production on the board, and I believe he only has 1 touchdown, a rushing touchdown, if any, in his 3 games as a backup. So now let's move on to the Bucs yesterday versus the Carolina Panthers, and the Bucs were able to win 30-24 against the Carolina Panthers and lock up the NFC South. The Bucs had a great showing at one point. They were down 24-10 and never looked out of the game, though. Not really. It wasn't Brady's best work, but he got the job done, and when it matters most, the Bucs are able to string drives together and come back and get the job done. This season hasn't been Brady's best work. He has the most losses that he's ever had. A Tom Brady-led team has never lost 8 games, ladies and gentlemen, and they are right now 8-8. But to come down, they were 3-6 or 3-5 at one point, and they were able to get to 5-5, and then they were 6-8, and were able to get to 8-8. So respect to the Bucs for being a resilient team, and now they are the 4th seed in the NFC playoff bracket. And if they win next week, they'll be able just to ride the momentum into the playoffs and try not to be an early round exit against a team like the Vikings or a team like the Eagles if they cannot wrap up the first round bye. The Bucs won 30-24 on the strength of Mike Evans getting the job done, and in my opinion, I think the Bucs, although they're in the playoffs, they will be a first-round exit. In my opinion, they are. I believe they're not a playoff-worthy team. They snuck in by default because their division is so bad. The next best team in the division is 5-9, or 5-10, I believe, or 6-10, one of those two. So, whereas you look at the NFC East per se, and you have the Dallas Cowboys having 11 wins, the Philadelphia Eagles having 12 wins as the top 2 teams. So the NFC South has been 13 wins. Excuse me. Thank you for my ombudsman to my left helping me with my statistician or my statistics, because he just said that the Eagles have 13 wins. Now, after talking about the Bucs, and also, what time is it? And after talking about the Bucs win 30-24 versus Carolina, the 5:33. Thank you very much. We're going to talk about the Packers playing the Vikings, which looks like a mixed match on paper because the Vikings are the better team. The Vikings have had 11 wins, and the Packers were 7-8, and the Packers went on to rout the Vikings 41-17, but it wasn't even that close. Aaron Rodgers, his receivers, Christian Watson, and the Romeo Doubs and the like, along with Aaron Jones, their running game, and A.J. Dillon, which basically he has genuine tree trunks for quads. If you ever seen, like, when thigh season comes around, he's killing it, ladies and gentlemen. Yo, they can run the ball like an old school NFL running attack football. Like, they remind me of the Steelers of old, or even like with Dorsey Levens and them back in the day with the Packers. So the Packers were able to get themselves into the playoff hunt, and in the hunt, you know, when they show on the playoff graphics on CBS or Fox when they say in the hunt, the Packers are right there. Like, they're the first out at this point. And it comes out down to the last week. They're in a battle with the Lions at home in Lambeau Field for the 7th seed in the NFC playoffs, I believe. And I really think that the Packers are going to get it done, but it's going to be close. It's going to be entirely too close for the Packers' liking because the Lions are a resilient team. Dan Campbell is going to go out there and try to eat the players' kneecaps. Like he said, it was just a figure of speech. That's how hard he wants to play and how nasty he wants to and tough he wants to play. And then I really think that the Lions will probably be in the lead late, and it will come down to an Aaron Rodgers-led drive for the Green Bay Packers to get into the playoffs as a 7th seed and round out the NFC and NFL playoffs. If the Packers can't get it done and you see the Lions go up early, the Packers won't be out of it because the Lions' defense has been one of the worst scoring defenses in the league this year, if not the worst. So the Packers will always be in the game. Right now, the Packers are 4.5-point favorites. I'd probably still buy that down to 4-point favorites. Or, depending on who's injured for the Lions, you can probably expect the line to move for the Packers towards the Packers. Hey everyone, it's the Leo Be the Lion show coming to you live from Respectable Street, 5 to 6 on Mondays. Talk about sports and business with a Florida flair. And you can catch me on YouTube at Leo Be the Lion. Please subscribe. Also, find me on Twitter and IG at Leo Be the Lion Show. So, like I said, the Packers, if they do get into the playoffs, they will be dangerous to play because their offense and they had two-time defending champ of Aaron Rodgers at the helm. Now let's move on to the next game in my NFL Week 17 news and notes. Yeah, the Packers were the number 1 seed last year, and they didn't make it to the playoff. I mean, they didn't make it to the Super Bowl. So we never know. And the Packers were actually my Super Bowl pick this year, and I look terribly wrong right now. So we'll see what's going to happen going forward if the Packers can even make the playoffs. But now let's get into the Giants versus the Colts, or the Fighting Saturdays, as I like to call them. The Giants played the Colts not on Saturday, but on New Year's Day on Sunday, and the Giants were able to lock up their playoff spot. They clinched the playoff spot in the NFC playoffs, 38-10 against the Colts. They took care of business. Daniel Jones showed out. It's a contract year for him. They have to decide whether to sign him or whether to move on from him, so he showed out. Saquon Barkley had a good game, and the Giants' defense is had a great season so far. And their last game is kind of meaningless, so they can rest their players to get ready for the playoff spot that they clinched. Expect them to be a 5 or 6 seed and not the 7th seed, and to do some damage in the playoffs. And why do I think the Giants can do damage in the playoffs? Is because they're built like 2007, like 2011. They're built with a running game and a defense. Saquon Barkley and the Giants are a run-first, nasty team that love to run the ball with Saquon Barkley, and as an added bonus can run the ball with Daniel Jones, as well as their defense is nasty. They got Landon Collins back. They re-signed him from another team. They were able also to have stalwarts on defense that you may not have heard. And, I can't even think of any players on defense besides Landon Collins. But what I want to say is that the Giants are one of those formidable teams on defense where they're able to hold teams to low scores and be in games. And when you can run the ball and play defense in the playoffs, especially when the temperature dips below freezing, especially when the games get down to the nitty-gritty and you can run the ball for that first down or break a run late to win the game, that's when you need a running game and a defense to really step it up in the NFL playoffs. And that's what the Giants can do. So it's one of those years when nobody is really touting the Giants and really counting the Giants out. That's when the Giants usually play their best in the playoffs. And most of the times in 2007 and 11, the Giants got in as a wild card and shocked some people against Green Bay. They shocked some people against New England. They shocked people. They were underdogs, I want to say, in every week, except maybe against the time when they played the Falcons. But also the Falcons, I believe, that year had Matt Ryan had an MVP year, but he didn't win the MVP. So when it comes down to it, the Giants are being overlooked and underrated, and I believe the Giants can do some damage in the playoffs, and they clinched the playoff spot for the first time since 2016. Also, if the writers, the Associated Press, and the NFL don't give Brian Daboll, or Dabs as he's affectionately called in New York area, if they don't give Dabs the Coach of the Year, they need to be abolished at that point, because the Giants and Brian Daboll are the surprise team of the year, in my opinion. They have been able to really make chicken salad out of chicken you-know-what, and the Coach of the Year should belong to Brian Daboll. Yes. We have something from my statistician. What would you want to say? Yes? You saw on the TV that the Steelers coach might be the Coach of the Year too? Oh, yeah, Mike Tomlin. Yeah, because the Steelers were really bad this year, and then they've turned it around, and they might make the playoffs as well. But that's a good point. That's a great point. Thank you. And so the Giants or the Steelers, so Tomlin or Brian Daboll, Coach of the Year, according to my statistician. But I believe it should be Brian Daboll for the Giants, because the Giants have from the beginning of the year, for the hot start. Yeah, they maybe stumbled in the middle of the season, but like a playoff team does, like I alluded to earlier, a playoff team gets stronger in December and January, and that's what the Giants have done. So I expect the Giants to, come time for the playoffs, to do some damage and not just be a one-and-done wild card team. Now let's get to the next game in our NFL Week 17 news and notes, and that is the Chargers versus the Rams. And the Chargers were able to take care of business 31-10 against the Rams, and were able to lock up their playoff chances and lock up their playoff seeding with Herbert for the first time in his career. In his third season, Justin Herbert and the Chargers are going to the playoffs for the first time. So let's see what kind of damage they can do in the playoffs, and see if that high-flying offense of the Chargers with Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Austin Eckler, and Justin Herbert can take care of business. And I wouldn't say the Chargers defense is underrated. I would just say they're kind of slept on a little bit. Like some teams, I guess because they play in Los Angeles, they're kind of slept on by other teams, other markets. The Chargers are really one of those teams like the Giants that you do not want to see in the playoffs. And when it comes down to it, the Chargers aren't the old Chargers. This is a whole new regime for the Chargers. This is not a Phillip Rivers Chargers. This isn't Dan Fouts Chargers. This isn't even Drew Brees or Natron Means Chargers from 1994 with Junior Seau and them. So let's see what the Chargers can do. And in the words of Arnold Schwarzenegger, he said, "Go Chargers, go," back when he was governor of California. The Chargers are clinched, and they'll likely be the 6th seed. I think that, and I believe that if they play the Ravens, if they keep it close, they can win at the end, but I think the Ravens have the edge in that matchup, or the Bengals have the edge in that matchup. So let's see how that shakes out. Then, now that we've talked about the NFL Week 17 news and notes, let's get into my hashtag 5-pack of picks recap. Hashtag 5-pack of picks recap for last week. I picked 2 college games like I normally do and 3 pro games, and was able to was shocked by the results. I thought I was going to be 4-1 or 5-0, and let's just get into the matchups. So I was 39, 33-2 on the season. And for my first matchup, I picked the first semifinal, which was TCU +8 versus Michigan. And TCU was able to take care of business. TCU won straight up and won 51-45. And I was able to take that 1-0 in my hashtag 5-pack of picks. Then, this was the game that I was most surprised about. If you asked me before the game started, out of my 5-pack of picks for last week, which one were you most confident in, Leo Be the Lion? Well, I would have said you, Pergun, the guy who asked me. I would have said that UGA is my most confident pick. The Georgia Bulldogs should be able to cover 6.5 against Ohio State every day of the week and twice on Saturday when they played. But guess what? They didn't. It got out. The Georgians started trailing by 21-7, and I said, "Uh-oh, this game is not looking good." How is Ohio State deciding to play their best game of the year all year, their most competitive game of the year, against the defending national champs? I respect to Ohio State for doing that. And so, like I alluded to earlier and like I broke down earlier, Georgia was unable to cover, and they won the game 42-41 on a missed field goal. And Georgia better thank their lucky stars that they're able to survive, or else it would have been an Ohio State versus TCU national championship game. If Ohio State would have been able to get 5 or 6 more yards, or maybe just do a little dink and dunk pattern underneath, little drag route, little quick button hook, little slant, real quick, just to get a few more yards before they had to kick the field goal, who knows? But a 50-yard field goal for the Ohio State kicker was too much. He missed it wide left, and Georgia is moving on to the national championship game on Monday, January 9th. But that made me fall to 1-1 on my hashtag 5-pack of picks. Then, if you asked me, Leo Be the Lion, which of your 5-pack of picks is your weakest one, or which one do you think is not going to happen, I would have said the Dolphins minus laying 1 against the Patriots. And guess what? I lost that one. The Dolphins lost 23-21. If I would have waited till later in the week when the Dolphins were 2.5-point favorites, I would have covered. But I like to lock in the picks when I feel the line is the most fresh. And normally later on in the week, closer to the game time, the line is sharp. And what that means is most of the value, most of the bookmakers, most of the odds have moved, and the lines have moved in such a way that you cannot find any little tricks. Like, you can't find any arbitrage. There's any extra value in those lines, where that is the most even line that they can come up with as far as most on-the-nose line. If you try to, a lot of times, if you see a number that you like say for this week against the Jets, if the Dolphins were 3-point underdogs, and I say, we're underdogs against the Jets at home, pick it now, because you can probably expect that line to move where the Dolphins end up being favorites against the Jets, since the Dolphins are at home. And so that brought me to 1-2 on my hashtag 5-pack of picks. Then my 4th pick was the Giants laying 4 against the Colts, and they won 38-10. That brought me to 2-2. And then my 5th hashtag 5-pack of pick was the Jags laying 3 against the Texans, and the Jags won 31-3, and that was a win 3-2 on my hashtag 5-pack of picks, which moved my record to 42 wins, 35 losses, and 2 pushes, which is 53% win percentage on the year, over 500. Anything over 500 is good in a situation where 97% of people lose money or have a losing record in sports wagering. Now, let's go to my hashtag 5-pack of picks for this week, and let's start with, they're all going to be NFL picks this week. Thank you very much. They're all going to be NFL picks this week, and because I don't want to pick the national championship, because I'll be on again before the national championship game starts, and there's not much college football action. In subsequent weeks, when I do make these 5-pack of picks, I'll have some NBA games. When the MLB starts up, I'll have MLB games and NHL games. I might even have some soccer games in there, but for right now, I'm sticking to the NFL game. And let's get started with our hashtag 5-pack of picks. Leo Be the Lions, soon to be world famous. Hashtag 5-pack of picks. Let's go. So the first pick that I have for this week, week 18 in the NFL, is the Steelers laying 3 points against the Cleveland Browns. And the reason why I say this is the Browns would love to play spoiler. The Browns would love to be one of those teams that keep the Steelers from having any chance of making the playoffs and be able to destroy the Steelers' playoff hopes. But the Steelers need to win. This is a must-win. The Steelers are a different team than they were a month ago. Since they've gotten T.J. Watt back, they've been a completely different team, and the Steelers need to win. The edge in this game, I believe, goes to the Steelers' defense. And give me the Steelers to win 17-10, 24-17 when it comes down to it. The Steelers laying 3 versus the Browns. And Mike Tomlin will win to bring the Steelers to 9-8, and he'll continue his consecutive streak of being over 500 in the NFL. Then for my second pick in the hashtag 5-pack of picks, it is the Lions +5. Right now it's 4.5. I expect it to move in the Packers' favor, or move more in the Lions' favor at this point, because 4 points doesn't seem like enough for people. I think people are going to jump on and overreact to the Packers. So right now the Lions, I bought it up to 5 points. Lions taking the 5 points versus the Packers. This is to go for all the marbles, to go to the playoffs. Let's see if the Lions can infiltrate Lambeau Field and get a win on the road to beat the Packers, beat their division rivals to go to the playoffs. I say go Lions. This is the Leo Be the Lion show, every Monday live 5 to 6 from Respectable Street here in Clematis in beautiful West Palm Beach. Follow me on Twitter and IG at Leo Be the Lion show, or subscribe and like my channel on YouTube at Leo Be the Lion. I say go Lions because I'm Leo Be the Lion, and I really think that the Green Bay Packers don't deserve to go to the playoffs. The Lions have stayed strong throughout the year and really come on stronger than the Packers, but you can never count out the Packers because they have a guy who's number 12 under center named Aaron Rodgers. This has all the makings of the Packers taking care of business at Lambeau for the Packers to win and take care of business and go to the playoffs, but I'm hoping the Lions can cover the 5 against the Packers. The third pick in my picks this week is the Dolphins laying 2 points against the Jets. I personally think that this line won't move that much. Maybe it'll move where the Dolphins get 3 or 4, depending on if Teddy Bridgewater is the quarterback or if Tua Tagovailoa is coming back to be the quarterback. This is for the Dolphins' chance to get to the playoffs. Come on, Miami. Let's go to the playoffs. First time since 2016. Let's try to win the playoff game for the first time since 2002. Let's go, Miami Dolphins. I don't really believe, as an honest Dolphins fan, my head tells me that the Dolphins are going to stub their toe and shoot themselves in the foot on Sunday at home and lose to the Jets somehow. But my heart tells me that the Dolphins are going to get up from the mat one more time and beat the Jets on Sunday, and hopefully the Pats will lose so that the Dolphins can stamp their ticket to the playoff, like I said, for the first time since 2016. We need the Pats to lose. Hopefully the Bills will have something to play for so that the Bills will have to play their starters, and hopefully the Bills won't do the Pats a favor and lay down against them. Now, let's talk about the next game in my hashtag 5-pack of picks, and that is the Jags laying 6 against the Titans. The reason why I think the Jags and believe the Jags can cover the 6 points against the Titans is that the Titans have shown that their offense is inept and is only one-dimensional without Ryan Tannehill. Without Ryan Tannehill to be a serviceable quarterback for the Titans, they cannot really run the ball effectively with Derrick Henry. And even if they do run the ball effectively with Derrick Henry, it's not explosive enough to win them games. It can just keep them in games or keep their leads if they have a lead. So I don't expect the Titans to really have a good showing on Sunday, even though it's a rivalry game and may be close. But I do think the Jags will come away with this victory 27-17. The Jags are on a hot streak, and they have the chance to win the division. And I believe it's the first time they have the chance to win the division since 2018, and it could be even sooner. No, actually, I think 2016 or 2015, ladies and gentlemen. So now that the Jags might get in, they'll sneak in. They're a good young team if they can beat the Titans. So for my last of my hashtag 5-pack of picks, it is the Patriots +7.5 versus the Bills, or 8. Buy it up to 8 at this point. If the Bills have something to play for, you can expect the line to just stay around that 7.5 or 7 points. It might go down to the Pats +6, but this is for all the marbles for the Pats. Expect them to play really strongly Expect Mac Jones to have a decent game, even though I don't like Mac Jones. Expect Bill Belichick to draw up a good game plan against the Bills, even though the Bills have looked like world beaters and can blow out any team. Expect them to draw up a good game plan. But at the end of the day, it's come on, Bills. Please do the Dolphins a favor and beat the Patriots on Sunday so that all the Dolphins have to do is beat the Jets. And then let me know if the Dolphins can get to the playoffs. The games will probably be at different times because they like to do that. And then they'll be able to watch each other play. Like at first, the Dolphins will probably play at 1 o'clock. So we'll see. The Patriots will know if they need to win or not. And then the Patriots and the Bills game, I believe, is going to be flexed to a primetime slot because it'll be fighting for the playoffs. Now, after getting into the NFL Week 17 news and notes and the NFL preview and everything that we've talked about, let's get into, since it's 2023, January 2nd, Happy New Year's to everybody. Let me be one of the last people to wish you Happy New Year's if you haven't been wished one already, because I don't know about you, but if it's probably like if New Year's was on Sunday and by the time we get to like Wednesday, like you can't really say Happy New Year's anymore. I mean, you could if you're extra friendly, but like it's kind of like late. Like once we get to the 5th, that's Thursday. I'll give you all till Thursday to say Happy New Year and then just get it out of your system, and then we just go on. January is going to feel like 3 months anyway. For the past like 3 years, January has felt like it has like 8 weeks in it. And then we have a whole nother year after that. So let's just prep for a long January. Hopefully it'll be a good January to everyone out there. And let me leave you with my hashtag words of encouragement, my segment, before giving you a quick news flash preview of the Monday Night Football where the Bills play tonight. Okay, so what I wanted to talk about was your heroes. So growing up, my heroes, it was my dad. I loved looking up to my dad, and Deion Sanders and The Rock. And what I learned is that you can look up to your heroes, you can admire your heroes, you can appreciate them, and you can take them on as role models. But what you need to do is not put them on a pedestal. And I need to see the time, son. I need to keep track of the time. Thank you. So what you need to do is, you can have heroes and role models. But we've seen all too often in 2022, even just last year, that your role models can fall from grace. And people are just people, and we all make mistakes. So, it's okay to say, oh, man, I really admire The Rock for what he does, and he hustles his butt off, and he takes care of business. Yeah, he only had $7 in his pocket when he started all his production companies. Good job, Rock. That's awesome. But you shouldn't go to The Rock for marital advice. You shouldn't go to The Rock for social advice. You shouldn't go to The Rock for political advice. Same thing with even your parents. You got to make your own decisions. You got to have your own, you can admire your parents, what they do, but they're humans after all. They made their own mistakes. You could admire Deion Sanders. He's going to make his own mistakes. He's not perfect. You could admire Kanye West. You could admire Donald Trump. You could admire any politician, but they're all human. They all make mistakes. Nobody is perfect. The day somebody's perfect is the day they're not human. The day that I've seen iRobot one too many times, and the day that somebody is perfect is the day that the robots take over. So have heroes, have admirations, have aspirations, but don't put them on a pedestal. This has been Leo B. the Lion coming to you live from Respectable Street, 5 to 6 every Monday. Follow me on YouTube at Leo B. the Lion. Have a great week, everybody. Leo B. the Lion signing off.